They didn't just ignore her, they mocked her, whispered, and exchanged glances full of judgment. The grand hall was filled with influential guests dressed in elegant attire, each carefully choosing where to sit. A girl, simple in appearance, wearing worn shoes and a modest dress, stepped inside. She looked around nervously, clutching an old notebook. She whispered to herself, maybe they'll let me sit somewhere, but as she walked, some smirked, some chuckled, and some outright said, this isn't a place for people like her. Yet she kept walking, hoping to find just one empty seat. What she didn't know was that someone important, was closely watching, and in a moment, he was about to silence the entire hall with just one simple gesture. She looked for a seat at the long polished table, where business leaders, journalists, and invited guests sat. She approached politely, is this seat free? One woman looked up, gave a half smile, and replied loudly so everyone could hear, dear, this is for attendees, not observers. Laughter followed, not all loud, but sharp enough to cut through her courage. She stepped back, cheeks turning red, heart beating painfully. She didn't belong here, at least that's what they wanted her to believe. A man with expensive glasses leaned forward and told his friend, these types just want attention. No contribution, no invitation, but expect respect. He didn't hide his comment. A few heads turned. She heard it. She wanted to disappear. But still, she held her notebook close, as if it was the only thing giving her strength. She turned to leave, but then saw one more seat, closer to the main stage. Maybe, just maybe. As she walked toward it, the whispers grew louder. Does she even know where she is? Probably just here for free snacks. Look at her shoes. The laughter wasn't loud, but it was poisonous. She sat quietly in a corner chair, hoping to blend in. But that's when it happened. The host announced the arrival of the special guest, the keynote speaker. People adjusted their suits, fixed their ties, and prepared to stand. But before he went to the stage, he stopped. He observed the hall, eyes resting on her. Everyone expected him to head straight to the front, but instead, he walked, slowly, intentionally, toward the girl sitting alone in the corner. The room grew quiet, confused. He reached her, smiled gently, and said something no one expected, I've been waiting for you. This seat, he said, pointing to the empty chair placed at the central table, is for you. Silence. Shock. Confusion. People blinked, unsure if this was planned or a mistake. She looked up, visibly startled. For me. He nodded with confidence. He took her notebook, scanned through a few pages, and smiled. She is not just an attendee, he said to the crowd, she is today's most important voice. The entire room froze. No one laughed now. The same people who mocked her lowered their eyes. Those who joked about her shoes suddenly felt small. He pulled out the main chair, the one reserved for special guests, and gently placed her notebook on the table in front of it. She whispered nervously, but why? He replied, loud enough for all to hear, because ideas don't wear expensive shoes. Respect doesn't come dressed in silk. True strength doesn't announce itself, it just arrives quietly and changes everything. Part 2 approximately equals 5,000 characters. The hall that moments ago giggled and judged now sat quiet and uncomfortable. She sat down at the main table, still confused, her heart racing. The keynote speaker, a respected innovator and philanthropist, sat beside her. Would you mind, he asked gently, sharing your idea with us? She trembled. She had never spoken to a large audience before. Especially not one that had just mocked her mere presence. But he nodded encouragingly, and somehow, that was enough. She opened her notebook. Pages filled with drawings, plans, and handwritten notes. She took a breath. I'm not from a big university. I don't have sponsors. But I have a solution, she said quietly. The room leaned in. Even those who scoffed at her earlier now sat straight. She continued, voice growing steadier, a solution for villages, where children walk miles to get clean water. A portable system that costs less than a pair of those shoes you laughed at. She glanced up briefly. Some looked away, ashamed. She went on, her passion replacing her nervousness. She explained how her low-cost filtration model could change thousands of lives. No fancy language, no complicated charts, just simple truth, real facts, and undeniable impact. Some wrote notes. Others recorded her. The same people who had laughed at her dress now listened like students. She spoke softly, but every word felt powerful. When she finished, no one clapped, not because it wasn't impressive, but because they were stunned. The keynote speaker stood and broke the silence. Innovation doesn't come dressed in privilege, he said. It comes hidden in courage. Then the applause began, slowly at first, then like a wave. Some stood, some wiped tears. And she stood there, not proud, not arrogant, just grateful. During the break, reporters formed a line to speak with her. The same business leaders who earlier didn't want her near their table now wanted her at their events, their organizations, their initiatives. But she remained calm. She looked at her old notebook, her only companion through years of doubt, and smiled. One woman who had earlier mocked her approached. She didn't speak at first. Finally, she whispered, "I judged you. I didn't even know you. I saw your shoes, not your journey. I'm sorry." The girl smiled kindly. "We all do it sometimes. The question is, what we do when we realize it." The woman nodded, humbled. Across the hall, people were no longer asking, "Who is she?" but rather, "How can we help?" Part 3 approximately equals 5,000 characters. When the event ended, the keynote speaker walked her to the exit. "Do you know why I called you forward?" She shook her head. He smiled gently. "Because 10 years ago, I was you." Her eyes widened. He continued, "I walked into a hall just like this. They laughed at my clothes. They dismissed my ideas. And someone I'll never forget, did for me what I did for you today." She listened quietly. His voice softened. "One day, you will do it for someone else." She stepped outside the hall, notebook still in hand, but this time, something was different. She didn't clutch it for comfort, she held it like a future. She walked not like someone trying to be accepted, but someone who belonged. Because she finally understood, it was never about the seat. It was about knowing you deserved one, even when no one offered it. Months passed. Her idea spread. Investors funded it. Governments adopted it. Villages celebrated it. She stood before classrooms, conferences, and even global forums, telling her story, not to showcase herself, but to remind the world that brilliance doesn't always wear a name tag. And then one day, in a crowded auditorium, a nervous young boy walked in. He held a tattered notebook. Simple clothes. Unsure steps. People laughed. People whispered. She watched from the stage, and smiled. She knew exactly what to do. She stood, walked toward him, and with one simple, powerful gesture, she pulled out the chair beside her, and said, just as someone once said to her, "This seat is for you." And just like that, history repeated, not in arrogance, but in kindness. Because sometimes, the biggest change begins with the simplest gesture.